if anyone is ever interested to open a restaurant in Japan, first I would say think carefully. It's a lot of work and it may not be worth it at all. You're in Tokyo, you could meet someone, you'll never meet them again. But in Matsue, I could see that people know each other. It feels very Irish here. I want the customer at some stage, especially with Japanese, to go, eh? That's what we want. That's the reaction we want. What was it, 2015? Is that when I opened? I'm not sure if I do it again, but it is what it is, yeah. I'm too deep now.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and we have the pleasure to welcome Alan in the studio today. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for the invitation, Toby. I watched the show, and it's good to be here.
You're a chef, business owner based in Matsue, where you're known for your Irish stew house.
That's right.
Introducing Irish culture to Japan, but you do a lot more than just run the stew house. So we're going to dive a little bit into your journey and all the things you've been and done. Maybe talk a little bit about your Guinness World Records well. But let's start at the beginning. You came here in 2008. You moved here from Dundalk, a little bit north of Dublin, I think.
That's right. Yeah, it's right between Belfast and Dublin, just 1 hour each direction.
What made you leave Ireland for Japan?
Yeah, I remember I was graduating, and I think it was just an interesting opportunity I was looking for. Look, maybe to differentiate yourself a little bit. I think a lot of my friends. This was around 2008, before the crash, and a lot of my friends were going to Australia, and I had only planned to stay 2 years. There was an Irish government program called the FOSS Overseas Graduate Program, where they'd introduce Irish graduates to companies in Japan and in other places in Asia. But it was Japan I was particularly interested in. So the plan was just come over here, enjoy Japan life a little bit, and then hopefully go back to Ireland with a bit of experience. That was the initial plan, but life doesn't work out like that, you know.
Life doesn't work out like that, but also Japan is a very unique choice. You mentioned a lot of your friends were going to Australia, maybe some went to Canada.
That's right, that's right. I actually, when you say that, the first thing that pops into my mind is, I don't know if did you ever play the game? It was like, I love strategy games, and there was a game, Shogun Total War. Mm-hmm. Did you ever play that?
Yeah.
And my dad used to tell me things about Japan, but that game really caught my attention, especially when I realized that there's some real characters in there from the Sengoku Jidai. I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's very interesting. So when I remember I was sitting in a lecture once, and some person from the FOSS Overseas Graduate Program was introducing the program to everyone in the room. I think they grabbed a few different years, and I was thinking to myself, that's interesting. I'll apply, and then I got a phone call, just would you go for an interview for this company or what have you? And one thing led to another. I was working in a Japanese IT company in Akihabara. I thought Japan was Akihabara. And that was the first station I worked at. I remember the very first date I went on was in Akihabara. And I'm sure the girl was like, who is this guy inviting me on a date to Akihabara? But it's good.
So you came directly for work?
Yeah, just for work, yeah. Fujisoft Incorporated, they were trying to kind of expand their global business, and I was just helping with that a little bit, international business development for them.
Did you have any Japanese before? Like, did you study the language? Or,
No, not before the program. The program gives you like a 2-month crash course in the language. So by the time I arrived, I could read hiragana and katakana, and I had the basic phrases down. I'm not too much past that now, but I'm getting there little by little, yeah.
So you didn't really have too much of a plan to go to Japan, but you see that opportunity, you get this crash course, and suddenly you're in Akihabara.
That's right.
What was it like for you to kind of leave
Dundalk and go to Akihabara? Yeah, it was wild, especially you're young and you're in your mid-20s. You arrive in Japan. Fortunately, there was some other Irish guys around my age who come over at the same time. So I had a small kind of unit of friends that we were just young, mid-20s, enjoying life in Tokyo. That was fantastic. Eventually, I would meet my current wife. I met her, and then it took me 2 or 3 years to actually get a date. So I don't know if that's a normal thing or not. But yeah, we got married. And then that is when I kind of had to decide, what am I doing? Am I going back to Ireland? Am I staying here?
Because you originally said, I'll just go for 2 years, get the experience, see what it's like somewhere else in the world and come back to Ireland. But what was it that made you kind of decide, no, it's not going to be just 2 years, I'm going to stay here?
Yeah, I think it was my wife, like, and the thing is, after my wife, I realized that I wasn't happy in the company I was in either. I don't really like IT. I don't like doing sales for an IT company, basically. And if I was staying in Japan, that was the path laid before me. So I remember I put my name on a bit of paper, and then I wrote out all my options, like Ireland, what could I do? My brother was living in Canada at the time. I was like, could I go to Canada? What could I do there? If I stay in Japan, what are my options? I like living in Japan, but how can I, like, as a foreigner here who's not fluent, who doesn't have a permanent visa, what can I actually do in Japan? So that was a tricky one. And my wife had just started her own business. She does her own jewelry design, engraving, just her own jewelry salon and stuff like that. So it would be very unfair of me to drag her away from her own dream. So I remember thinking about Japan, saying, how do I stay here on my terms?
So you had your name on a piece of paper. You wrote the 3 different countries. What did you write as your options around Japan?
Japan, I wrote, there was a few. So I was working, I kind of developed this kind of niche of being, a very stressful niche of being the Madoguchi for Japanese companies. Like Fujisoft is a very traditional Japanese company, and dealing with their international partners or customers. So you'd always you'd speak to the customer or partner at crazy hours in the morning if it was the US, or late in the evening if it was Europe, and then you'd take what you talked about back to the internal Japanese departments and engineers, and you'd hash out how you could maybe find a balance where they could work together. It was very stressful, very stressful. So I could do that. Maybe if it wasn't Fujisoft, could I go to a different company doing that? And then I thought about it. Well, like I do like at that time I wasn't a chef. I was passionate about cooking, but as I would soon learn, once you start putting paid customers at a table and time pressure, it's not so much fun cooking anymore. But I think, well, what if we try build a business around my passion? I'm a passionate Irish man. Could I grow my own business here in Japan? And one element of that was the stew house. At that time, we were thinking about, because there's no Irish craft beers in Japan, and I'd often chatted about that with my friends. So I was going, well, maybe we could look into that as well. And up until 2019, when we opened 2015, the stew house, that was the plan.
So 2015, the stew house came to be.
That's right.
Before that, when thinking about like Irish food and beverage businesses, the most common one is just like, there's an Irish pub in probably every major city in Japan.
That's right.
And typical Guinness beer, maybe a fish and chips.
That's right. Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that stems from 2002. Now, there's a few pubs around that are here much longer. For example, there's a pub in Akashi, run by an Irish guy called David Coffey, and he's been around for 30 years. Or Molly Malone's in Hiroshima, that opened around the time of the World Cup in 2002.
The rugby World Cup?
No, the soccer one in 2002. Yeah. So there are some kind of more authentic places than others, but in 2002, I think the large Japanese companies realized there was a market for foreigners drinking in pubs, and food was forgotten about. It was just something to soak the beer. But when I think of a pub at home, there's many pubs who serve top quality traditional Irish food, using local ingredients. And that was often forgot about, and we were just kind of typecast as kind of this British Irish kind of pizza, fish and chips kind of style of food. So that was the kind of initial thinking behind the stew house. So let's just pick a niche of Irish food, stuff everyone would have growing up, like soups, stews, breads. At the time in Tokyo, Tokyo Soup Stock was kind of taking off. I looked at their kind of business model. I even went in and I measured how much beef was in each one of their Tokyo bourses. I looked at their price point and so on. I said, well, let's take the Tokyo Soup Stock model, but just apply traditional Irish soups, stews, and breads to that, and that'll be our business, Kyojin Stew House.
So you had the idea for Kyojin Stew House, but you didn't just jump straight in. You just mentioned you went to look at Tokyo Soup Stock and even measured the amount of meat they're putting and so on.
Yeah, well, actually, that's yeah. So I think if anyone is ever interested to open a restaurant in Japan, First, I would say think carefully, because it's a lot of work and it may not be worth it at all. There's several years there at the beginning. I didn't even take a salary.
So, but from the idea to opening it to actually opening it, how long did that take?
I would say probably a good year. I could. So Tobias, if you wanted to open a restaurant, I could give you a blueprint, yes. So I could guarantee you customers for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Now, what you do with those customers, how you like kind of undersell and over deliver for them, that'll determine whether you get more customers from then on. But I could give you a blueprint on how to do that. Geez, when you think back, 2015? Is that when I opened? Wow, it's a long time ago. I'm not sure if I do it again, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'm too deep now. I'm selling stew in Shimane.
So you opened your first place in Tokyo.
That's right. That's right.
And you decide to go down this to follow your passion a little bit for cooking and bringing some of the Irish culture here. Why specifically stews? What can you tell, maybe to start with, a little bit about Irish food? Because the idea that most people have of Irish food, maybe not the actual dishes that you know from growing up there.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And in Ireland, you'll find a wide variety of food. So if you're on the coast, if you're down in Kenmare and in Cork, you're going to find a lot of shellfish, you're going to mussels, and there's a lot of farming as well. Like, I think Ireland has the same amount of farmland as Japan, because the lands are kind of low and sloping, so you can find great meat, great seafood by the Atlantic coast or the Irish Sea. So there's a wide variety of foods you can get, and to me, soups and stews were just growing up. There would always be something. My mom would have it. You'd be getting like a beef and Guinness or a lamb at least once a week.
Guinness,
You'd be getting that at least once a week with mashed potatoes. It's a simple Irish fare. I stayed clear of the fried food at the beginning. I was kind of looking at the Tokyo soup stock model as well. I wanted to kind of open the door to perhaps people who might not go to pubs to drink. I was thinking maybe you might get some elderly Japanese customers or families with kids and so on, if we were just a food-focused business. And I never said what it was, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be a pub. I never said anything. I let the customers decide what it was. And I just took the Tokyo soup stock kind of model where you can order like a stew and a side, soft drink. We only opened the first stew house with 3 items on the menu. It's only Irish lamb, beef and Guinness, seafood chowder, and freshly baked breads. That was it.
What was so interesting for you about the Tokyo Soup Stop model? It's a huge company. They've got shops all over Japan.
If I recall correctly, I remember there was, I read an article maybe from the founder. It was initially funded by Mitsubishi, I think, and someone from Mitsubishi set it up. I'm trying to recall something from a long time ago, but I used to go there and I used to think, and then I what we chatted about the Irish pubs, I was thinking, well, there's this gap here, and this is Irish food, similar Tokyo borscht, but I think beef and Guinness is nicer. Or I'd love to get lamb. I've never really had lamb in Japan, so that's kind of maybe where the seed was kind of created.
So planning and preparing for the restaurant opening is one thing, but once the restaurant is open, you also need the customers, and you need them to come and enjoy your food.
Right.
If people are not familiar with what's an Irish stew, they might be like hesitant to come in.
I still see that to this day. Like, what is Irish food? Yeah, that's still a battle I'm fighting every day, every week, you know.
How did you approach it, like after opening, when the customer started coming in or standing in front and outside and looking at, what is this new place around the corner? How do you kind of introduce Irish food to them, or Irish stews?
Yeah, that's if they walk through the door, they're interested. Something has brought them in. So I think you've won something there. Something along the lines has brought them through your door, whether it's just convenience. For example, in Togoshi Ginza, are you familiar with Togoshi Ginza? It's a very long Shotengai market street in Tokyo, and we were at the very corner of it. And go back, if anyone's opening a restaurant, choose a location, especially if it's your first time, off the beaten track if necessary, but make sure it's low risk and try have a unique enough idea that will bring people to that location. Don't spend so much money. So people used to walk to the end of the market street, and they might turn around and go back up, but we were just at the very end. So we might get a few just random people walking in before they trek back up to there was loads of stations, but they're all about 15 or 20 minutes away. So we'd have some random walk-ins, and it was Well, you want that. That's when your in-store marketing has to kick in. And I would always say that we want the customer at some stage during the meal to go, especially for Japanese, to go, eh? Like, that's what we want. That's the reaction we want while a customer is visiting. And there's a few ways in which I try to work to do that.
What was the reaction from the customers once they started eating? Did you get that from
well, so what we do is we deliver more than just food. So once they come in the door, that's when, as I mentioned, your in-store marketing would kick in. So we would have an explanation file. So there's a kind of roadmap whenever, or a manual whenever our staff are joining. So you'd explain the menu. So traditional soups, stews, and breads. If they're not familiar with anything like what's potato bread or what's soda bread or something, you'd explain what it is, and you let the customer just decide what they want. Once that order comes in, that's when we've got an explanation file. So I didn't want anything on the wall. I wanted to share Irish culture, but anything that was there needed to have a Japanese explanation. So we'd have a file. Now this initially started as just like a Daiso plastic folder that I'd written out in PowerPoint, and we'd have Japanese, so we'd have like my top 5 places to visit in Ireland, or interest people of Irish heritage, and so on. But now what we have is we self-publish our own kind of Stewhouse gallery file, and we've got some interesting stuff over the years. Like a customer and a few artist customers have kind of one Japanese customer like did like a almost Book of Kells style art that was given to us as I was leaving Tokyo. My cousin in Ireland, she studied linoleum art. Are you familiar with that? Where you it's like you carve something in wood and you put ink on it, and then you do a print and put it on the walls. So we have a linoleum art tour of Dublin, stuff like that. And then that would be now in a self-published Amazon kind of paperback. So once a customer orders, then we have to go just, and while you're waiting, if you're interested in anything on the walls, everything has an explanation here. So even in the toilets, when you go to the toilets, we've got Irish slang just on the wall. As soon as you sit down in the toilet, you're looking at a table of Irish English, English meaning, Japanese meaning, and how you read it in katakana. So little nuggets of just content that we would use to try enhance their experience while in the stew house. And then you have to hope the food will deliver as well.
Mm-hmm. So a whole cultural experience.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
A few of them exist here in Japan, I think, that do it like you, especially about Irish culture. What did you notice were customers particularly interested in, whether it's the food or the restaurant?
It's I've seen a bit of everything, really. Like sometimes people, like Japanese customers who are familiar with Ireland, come in just to test you, to see if it's authentic. So you have to really take care of them because they've been to Ireland, they know what to expect. Same with Irish people, or anyone who's been to Ireland comes in. That's where you kind of need to deliver on the food. I think you want people to come in and go, wow, that's not my usual restaurant. I wasn't expecting that from this place. Especially now when we're in Matsue in like rural Japan, someone walks in. I want them to go, wow, this is here in Matsue, this place, like so. Yeah. I think I've seen it all. Whether some people are take interest in the content, some people are surprised by the food, a bit of everything.
So you're not a chef by training, but you said you just really enjoy this. But suddenly you're in the kitchen, you actually have to make those recipes up to standards for the customers.
That's right.
You probably also have to follow some like official guidelines and regulations for
That's
food
right.
safety and standards. And suddenly cooking is not a hobby anymore. It's like, okay, this is my profession. How was that transition for you? What were the challenges? Well,
so once you open your own business, whether it's a restaurant or anything, you have to be, in my case, I was potato peeler, waiter, chef, CFO, that sort of way. So you're doing everything. That's what when we first opened, we had just only 3 items on the menu. And then over the years, we'd hire more chefs. And then I would take stuff from the chefs. And then you're expanding your menu little by little. And then just repetition, like running, at one stage, running 2 restaurants, an online store as well, where I was primarily in the kitchen. I remember in my mind thinking, wow, I feel I've really graduated here. Like I've done my own apprenticeship as a chef. Just picking things off. We've had some fantastic chefs work with us as well. Shout out to Chef Sauri if she's listening. She's gone back to Mexico, but she's someone I learned a lot from as well. But yeah, for the restaurant, in terms of if anyone is opening a restaurant in Japan, it's fairly straightforward, but there's a lot of applications to make. So I actually wrote some of them down in case anyone's ever interested. So once you have a venue in mind, now, as anyone who's ever rented any sort of premises or apartment in Japan, you've got your key money, you've got your deposit. You'll need a guarantor as well. I think that's for apartments, that's fairly standard. It's the Hoshonin, is it? So you need someone to guarantee that as well. But once you have an actual location, you can then go to the Hokenjo or the local health department in the ward office, and that's when you need to start applying for all the licenses. So when we started, we were thinking restaurant, and we want to import beers as well. So we were looking at what do we need. So firstly, for the restaurant business, if someone's interested, I actually wrote them down. So you need an Eigyo Kyokasho. That's a basic one. If you want to make sales, that's what you need.
Just a business license.
Yeah, the business license, yeah. And then, for example, we wanted to make soda bread, so we had to get the Kashi Seizogyo. So if you don't have that one, you can't make cakes or can't make
anything baked.
Flour, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So when our menu was simple. We had 3 stews, soda bread, mashed potatoes. So for the soda bread at that time, we had to get that license as well. And then on top of that, if you want to do takeout, you need another license as well. That's a Sozai Seizogyo. And if you want to sell alcohol, then you need the Sakurui Hanbai Menkyo. So they're the license. You can go to your ward office, you bring blueprints, and you make separate applications for each of them. So that allows us, so those 4 licenses allow us to open a restaurant. Now, you can imagine the file will have a blueprint of, it will have this many seats. They're like little boxes.
So like an actual map of the layout of the restaurant.
Exactly. And the kitchen, where everything is in the kitchen. And that's how you'll get approved. When they come to inspect, they will check to see if you have all the requirements. Like you need to have 3 sinks. You need to have a sink for washing your hands. You need to have a sink for washing veg and so on. And then there's other items that you need to have a separate closet for your mop and brush and so on. The little requirements, as you can imagine, living in Japan, you're going to need all these things.
Once you check those boxes, I imagine they still come and check and inspect on regular basis.
That's right.
How often do they come to make sure that everything...
That's a very good question. Is it yearly? Yeah, every now and then I get so busy, but there's a check. Someone would let me know, or there's someone coming to check the kitchen. We're like, oh, everybody, get cleaning. Like, yeah. But they do come by and check, and they renew your license. Maybe I can't remember how many years you get it for, but each of them need to be renewed. So at that time, for example, they were the licenses. So you need the Eigyo Kyokasho just to sell. You need the Kashi Seizogyo for the flour, the Sozai Seizogyo for takeout, and you needed a alcohol license as well. And each of those require a person to do like a lecture. So for if you've graduated from a culinary school, maybe you don't need to do the shokunin eisei sekininsha. You need someone. Do you ever go into a restaurant and there's a little plastic plaque on the wall with someone's name on it? If you've already graduated from a culinary school, you can put your name on that. Whereas if you haven't and you're opening a restaurant, you need to go take a lecture where they teach you about food hygiene and so on. So, for example, you don't have food between a certain temperature, like 7 degrees to 76 degrees and so on. Like just teaching you the basics of food hygiene. And then you can go about opening a restaurant.
We're writing your name on a piece of paper and looking at your options in Japan, and you're like, why not try a restaurant? And then you start looking into this, and you're faced with, we need to find the location. We need to get all these licenses, otherwise we can't do even like simple things like making bread. Was there any point in time where you were like, is this really the right choice?
I just resigned, so I was all in. But you just pick one thing at a time. Like if you look at the whole mountain, you'll never make it to the top. Just one step at a time. So we take one and try figure it out. Over the years, like you learn not to overreact as much to when different requests. I think that might be one of my first ones when I realized that we needed separate license just for soda bread. We were only selling soda bread. We weren't at that time. Did we even have a dessert on the menu? I don't think we did. So it was only that license just for soda bread. I remember finding that a bit frustrating, but that's the way it works in Japan. But once you have that license, then you can go about doing what you need to do,
Once a restaurant is up and running, you're also then faced with competition. You mentioned you were in a Shotengai, so Shotengais have usually quite a few izakayas and other places. The way people kind of go out and eat out in Japan, I feel like it's quite different than Europe. The way the restaurants come and go at a fast pace. What have you noticed about the general kind of food and beverage scene and the atmosphere and the way this works? Yeah,
that's Japan. I think all over the world, because the barriers to entry to the restaurant business are lower than others, and a lot of people will join. will try, especially if they've a bit of a budget there. So it's very, very work intensive. There's a lot. I easily working, I'd say from 2015 when we first opened through until where I am now, we're working 80 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. I'm only taking off if I'm lucky and get 1 week during the year, if it's like a 5 weekend month, because you need your weekend sales. And if you're fortunate enough, do we have the staff to open when you're not there, and so on. And then, you have to get your profit margins correct. For example, I remember just thinking back now, when I was putting my business plan together, I'd kind of gotten some stuff mixed up. My understanding was that you could always target your food around 30%, food cost 35%. In Japan, you need to have your human resource cost a little bit higher. Typically, I was looking at maybe what I was taught in university, that maybe staff could be 25%, but no, that needs to be about 35%. So, so you need to reduce. So if you think about it, your food costs need to be about 20-25%. Your staff costs 35%. So straight away, that's about 60, is it? And then you got your admin, another 10%. Then you've got your utilities, another 10%. Your rent, another 10%. All of a sudden, that's 90. And you have to set aside your tax. That's not included there. So if you don't keep track of your tax, you will be liable for that. So if you're lucky, you'll make between 5 and 10% profit if you're busy all the time, working hard, probably on minimum wage.
So that's why a lot of restaurants probably close up shop soon after opening if they don't get the customer flow to be stable and regular.
No, that's right. And I think that can be disheartening as well, because whatever budget you have, whatever working capital you factor in at the beginning, that will just disappear very quickly. So I would say to anyone who is doing it or would love to do it or thinks about it, it's still a good way of life, you know. Like, you don't have a boss, but you're beholden to your customers. So, and it is hard work, but if you're someone who works hard, then why not? I've had some awesome memories. I've some things I might regret, but if you start your promotion 6 to 9 months before you open, even if you don't have a location, you need to start your promotion. You need to create awareness. Even if you just have a rough general idea where you'd like to open, get on social media, start your page, start all your social media ads, just creating awareness that you're going to be there. At least 6 months before you actually open. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of just getting, because there's so much work to be done, the renovation needs to be done. If you don't do a skeleton in Japan, if you're opening a restaurant, you can choose an inuki, which is a restaurant that is closed down, or you can choose a skeleton, which is just an empty building. If you're choosing an empty building, you have to build a grease trap, all these unnecessary things that will cost a fortune, which could be better spent elsewhere promoting your business. So as low risk as possible at the beginning, choose an inuki location, and work with reducing your initial upfront investment, and spend more in marketing to create awareness. And if you can do that, even just maybe 300 to 500 yen a day, 300 yen a day, the first 6 months, online advertising or Google ads or whatever in that specific location. I remember I was doing free tastings as well. So 1 month before we opened, every Sunday on the Shotengai, I was out with a pot just giving people free food. And there was long queues. And just introduce myself to the local people, because there's a lot of people going, what's going on in here? So if you do that, if you're promoting 6 to 9 months in advance, if you do some free tastings leading up to your actual event, just to give people an idea who you are and what you're about, then people will come in. And then once they come in, that's when you have to try keep them. That's when we did we use content to try enhance the kind of dining experience at the Stew House.
You've now been operating this venture for 10 years. When was a time when you kind of were like, okay, this is working, we're good now, we can kind of keep building on this and it's more stable?
Does that ever happen? There's always something. Even you think back, I would say maybe leading up to the 2019 Rugby World Cup. So we opened in 2015. So going back to the initial business plan, we'd spoken about the Stew House. So once I got all those applications, at the same time, we put in applications for the Sakurui Hanbai Menkyo. So that's the selling alcohol. Not just selling alcohol sitting down. So for example, if you go into a restaurant and they serve you a beer, that's one license you have to have. The next one, if you want to take out a can, a retail license, that's another license. If you want to sell wholesale, that's another license. If you want to sell online, that's another license. So in particular, if someone's interested in importing beers, for example, or importing anything. I can't really speak on anything other than beer. That's what I did. So you need to have the wholesale license. There's no such thing as an import license, to my knowledge. We don't have one, but we have the Sakerui Hanbai Menkyo, in particular for wholesale, retail, and online. So if you want to import beer, I was talking to. I went to Ireland and I sat down with a bunch of craft brewers. And in particular, I was working with a lovely family up in the north of Ireland in Castlewellan, just only a 30-minute drive from where I am in Dundalk, but they're north of the border, I'm south of the border. They're a Whitewater brewery. I liked I did a lovely IPA, did a lager. At that time, I'd never seen an Irish lager in Japan, so they did Belfast lager. They had Maggie's Leap IPA, red ale and stuff like that. So we said we'll take them over. So first of all, you get your license. So if anyone's listening and is interested in importing beer to Japan, I'm out of that business now, basically. So I'm happy to share everything with you. You need the Sakerui Hanbai Menkyo for wholesale in particular. You'll probably need to have a customer sign off saying, I'm going to buy this from Alan. We, at that time, someone in the Togoshi Ginza Market Street, Narusu-san, who's a lovely gentleman, he signed that for us saying he would buy some of our beer if we import it. And then we had the stewhouse as well. So we tied up, we had our license here in Japan. That's all you need, the wholesale license. And then you can get that at your local ward office. You just make the applications, pay the fee. You'll need an office. So they'll come by, in order to get, like anything, they'll come by. Same way to check the kitchen, you need a blueprint for the office. This is our desk.
Storage.
We'll have the beer here. This is our desk. We've a printer here. I think you need to say we have a fax machine over here. You know. So then you go to your supplier in whatever country. Ours was in just north of the border in Northern Ireland in Castlewellan. And then you need your shipping company. So who's actually going to take it? So they'll make the beer. It'll be stored in their warehouse, and then a shipping company will take it to the port, and they will deliver all the way to whatever Japanese port you're looking at. So we've delivered into Tokyo, Yokohama, and I'm going to say when we moved to Shimane, it was Muji. It's definitely not Muji, that's the brand, but it begins with M, and it's down in Kyushu somewhere. I think it's a port down there.
Matsumoto?
Yeah, and that's one. No, it's a small MU something. Muji, it's something like that there. But there's a port down there. That's one of the main reason we moved to Matsue was that during the pandemic, we were hemorrhaging cash from the import and wholesale beer business, which I can go into in more detail as well. But if you have a shipping partner who can take it from your supplier in that country, they will take it to whatever port you are in Japan. Once it reaches the port then, so you're just putting in place the value chain for importing it. And so you need a company who's your partner, who's making the product. You need a company who's going to ship it from there to Japan. You just pick a port, whichever your nearest one is. Then you're going to need, probably, unless you've a good Japanese friend who can take care of all this stuff for you, you're going to need to get someone to unload that container for you from the boat. Take the container off the boat, unload it from your products from that container, deal with all the custom inspections, and then they will need to ship it to your warehouse for storage. And then you'll probably need a warehouse storage partner. So that's one company, the supplier, the shipping partner, the Japanese kind of logistics partner, and then a storage company, delivery and storage company.
So a very complex process. And thanks to people like you that are willing to go through this, we are able to enjoy some Irish beer, craft beer.
Yeah, well, not my beer anymore. I stopped it, but there's a few there.
You mentioned the move to Shimane.
Yeah.
So you originally started your restaurant, your business in Tokyo. It was up and running for a few years. And then you decided to move to Shimane. You mentioned Corona.
That's right, yeah. So, well, actually, yeah. So at the time of the coronavirus, so let's go back actually. When you said when did I feel that things were going in a good direction, which is just before the pandemic. It was the Rugby World Cup in the autumn of 2019. So initially our plan was to have the stew house, which would be like a great way to share Irish culture, but also a promotional tool for any products we might import. For example, the beers. We've been importing beers for a while. I think we actually got the first batch of beers over in 2017 maybe, or 18, I can't remember. But at that time, at the Rugby World Cup, we were selling into about 30 different pubs. We were in a few supermarkets, and we had just got our IPA on the menu of the Dubliners pub franchise in Tokyo, which is a sub-company of Ginza Lion. So, and that was quite a process to get it on there. They were very kind to put it on the menu, and that was the first kind of large order of cases we've seen. Until that time, if you're selling into an independent pub, they might take the minimum order, which might be 2 cases or something. But they put a large order to their kind of central warehouse, and then they would give it to the 5 big pubs that they had in Tokyo. So I think at that time I felt, wow, we're finally getting progress here. We did some tours for the Rugby World Cup. I did some bus tours and so on. So we were busy. It was a busy time for us. That was when I felt that maybe we'd crossed a corner. So that's 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. So 5 years in, I felt maybe this could work. And then we got hit with the pandemic. We're like, oh my God, well, what's going on here?
Customers.
Yeah, it was just crazy. So again, so at that time, we had the one restaurant, small restaurant in Tokyo. We had the import business as well. And back in 2017, my wife suggested something that I never really put much thought into. She goes, what about your own frozen food? We'd seen that we were building a bit of a niche in like stews. She was like, would you not like, and she could say like, I remember she was saying, there's like, you can get frozen food in supermarkets and stuff what about making our own frozen food? So we applied for another license, a frozen food kind of shipping license, where you need to have certain equipment and like rapid freezers and so much, very expensive to kind of make sure that the products are frozen correctly, and then you can start shipping them. Japan's very good at shipping chilled, dry and frozen food efficiently with a variety of providers all around the country, like Yamato and Sagawa and so on. So we had that license just sitting there, but we were doing well with the import and the wholesale business of the beers, and the stew house was busy. So it wasn't something that we were thinking about. I remember in mid-February in 2020, is it pandemic 2020, was it?
Yeah.
Mid-February, I was walking along the Shotengai with I used to have a granny trolley, and I was so tall that I'd tie a scarf around the top of it. So if you had to buy something like on your way to work, I had to put it. I was dragging this granny trolley, and I knew I could see this coming. It was kind of everywhere at that time. It was February. It was just a matter of time before Japan was gonna struggle with it as well. Like, and I remember it took 10, 15 minutes to walk to the stew house. I called my wife when I got there. I said, what about the frozen food thing? Will we just try the online thing now? Just bring that plan that we had that was just sitting on the table. Will we try to do that? And that's what we did. Yeah. So from mid-February through until the beginning of April, that's what we focused on to get everything in place. So what boxes are we using? What provider are we going to be using? What EC site will we use? What's our menu? What can we actually freeze? what will it look like? How are we going to package this? And that was the beginning of ultimately the shift that we moved away, which is where I'm at now. I don't actually, so I lost my train of thought there. So
how did that new business idea of freezing food bring you to Shimane?
Yeah, that's so. We get to the pandemic, so we launched this online store, and there were some awesome people out there. So anyone who supported us, it was the day I think Abe-san announced the state of emergency, the day after we launched, I think. So we got lots of orders online. There was a lot of kind people who supported us. So then I saw, wait a minute, look at the analytics here. These people aren't in Tokyo. They could be anywhere in Japan. So this is a really good opportunity for this frozen food idea. And then I'd already agreed. I'd pencil. Well, so this is in February 2020. So I had a bunch of beers I stored in Kachidoki in Tokyo. I was paying 160,000 yen a month on storage in a warehouse.
Wow.
And they were penciled in for the St. Patrick's Day Festival in March 2020, which got cancelled. So now, and they were rapidly approaching their expiry. I think their expiry was April or May. I can't shift them.
Can you drink them?
I'm paying, like we're into June now, and I'm paying 160,000 a month for beers that are expired, and I'd also pre-ordered another container, which is like 20,000 units, which was shipping. So we were going, oh my God, what am I going to do here? This is a disaster. We've got the restaurant here. We can't really do in this tiny space in Tokyo. We can't do a restaurant and the online store from this tiny location. Anyone who's been to the stew house in Togoshi will know it was tiny. We only had like 20 seats or something. The kitchen, I couldn't stand up in the kitchen. My body learned to duck and weave.
Tall. People may not see from
that's the Kyojin thing, But I couldn't stand up in the kitchen. So it was, in order to get to process the orders, frozen food orders, I would have to go in like first train, sometimes get a taxi in, they'll be there at 4 a.m. and you try to get all that sorted before you open, in the hope that customers might come in because it's a pandemic. oh yeah, it was just a tough time. And then I'd already committed to more beers. And going back to the import business, once those beers arrive, say they would have been arriving probably in Yokohama, when that your partner takes them to the customs, there's two classifications for beer. One is happoshu and one is beer, depending on the ingredients. So you need to have Japanese labels for those products as well. And then before it arrives, they'll determine whether they'll test them as well. And they'll determine if it's happoshu, which is this tax bracket, or beer, which is this tax bracket. So it's beer, you're going to pay, upon arrival, 200 yen per litre of beer. So we had, say, 20,000 units, 330 milliliter bottles or cans. So 330 milliliters multiplied by 20, divided by 1 litre, multiplied by 200 yen. And that's what you pay. So as soon as I actually think for our last order, even in Matsue, I think our last order must have been 2022. I think we might still be paying the loan on that. Because it might be pushed into our current mortgage for the new production kitchen, but I think we're still paying that loan for that.
So that was a lot of cash. And
yeah, just up front. And then how are you paying your partner as well? Are you paying them up front as well? And then the clock starts ticking if it's a sell by date, which is a lot of people. That's why you might see a lot of whiskey getting imported, because you don't have the same sort of constraints around the best before date or the sell by date. But for beer, it's a bit trickier. You need to have a network to ship them ASAP.
So you're bleeding cash, and then it's like, we need to cut costs.
I was hemorrhaging cash. It was scary. I remember one night I was just rolling on the sofa thinking, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get out of this? We needed, and then I the quick fix almost was going to Matsue. So we thought,
why Matsue?
Lower cost. We needed to get a larger kitchen to do the restaurant and to do the two reasons. The first reason was the beer, actually. So the beer was we had a fresh shipment of 20,000 units arriving. We couldn't put them in Kachidoki because we only had like 2 pallets there and it was costing 160,000. If we put a full container out there, it's going to be like 1 million yen a month. So we had to get them down to not 1 million yen a month, but it would be significant. Not maybe 200,000 or 300,000 a month. So we got them down to Shimane in a warehouse partner there, and it was Ichiman Ruksenen, so it was 16,000 a month. So it was 1/10 of the cost to store the beer. So we were trying to reduce our risk. We knew that this was going to struggle now, and thankfully we brought in cans, which meant we could hopefully sell them online and so on. And I was thinking, well, if we open a stew house there as well, at least we'll shift some of these beers. If the wholesale business is going to die like it's looking like it is in February 2020. So that's when the initial thinking was, how do we minimize our risk for the importing business?
Did you find the warehouse just like by online search and you randomly saw?
No, I went down there 3 times to kind of...
Did you have any connections to Matsue or
no.
Shimane before?
Oh, there was one Irish customer that I had there. I met her when I went down there initially with my wife. The reason we chose there is because it's the strongest historical connection with Ireland through Lafcadio Hearn. Yeah. So we could have gone to Yokohama or Saitama. Maybe that might make more sense. Or if you're trying to focus on a e-commerce business shipping food, maybe somewhere around Osaka and Nagoya makes sense. Central Japan to have the best cost performance for shipping. But the strongest historical connection between Ireland and Japan is through Koizumi Yakumo, Lafcadio Hearn, Patrick Lafcadio Hearn, who married a local lady there, Setsu Koizumi, and there's a museum there run by his living relatives. And now the NHK morning drama starts this month, at the end of September. The morning drama based on his life.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's the reason we chose there, because we want to share Irish culture, and if we're going to ship food from somewhere, then we could go there.
That's a big move, though. So you're doing it for business reasons and the historical connection, but your life up until then has been like in downtown Tokyo.
That's right. Yeah,
working in IT, then running your own restaurant for over a decade. You've been in Tokyo, and suddenly you go to Matsue Shimane, which is one of the least populated.
That's right. If anyone is from Ireland, it's like the Leitrim of Japan. It's like the Sanin area, Shimane and Tottori. It's the number 1 and number 2 least populated prefectures in Japan. It's also, Shimane is the least visited prefecture in terms of tourism, domestic tourism. So come on, everybody, let's visit Shimane. But I think that might change with the morning drama coming up at this month.
And with the stew house now.
With the stew house, yeah. That's right.
How was that move? Kind of away from the city into the countryside, completely different pace of life. You meet new people. maybe different dialect as well.
Yeah, that was
different food and beverage scene. And
well, we went down there a few times to like do some reconnaissance. I found the location. I think I fell in love with the kitchen in this. Again, if you're opening a restaurant, do not open the skeleton unless you're Starbucks or something. Just go for the Inuki option, which means there was a restaurant there before. For some reason, it failed. You can go in and take the main infrastructure that's there. You can adjust it as you need, but it's significantly less cost to do that than it is to build something from scratch. So we went in. I kind of fell in love with the kitchen. I was like, oh, this is great. We could do a lot here. But the venue was huge. You need to do weddings and private bookings every week. And in hindsight, that was a terrible decision. But I was thinking that the large location, we could store as much beers as we want here as well. And we've got the warehouse partner. So I think at that time, when our initial move, my initial thinking was around the beers and importing. And then it was also the larger kitchen enabled us to explore the frozen food, possibilities around frozen food and shipping online as well, having seen the analytics launching in 20. So we moved in 2021 in February, and I'd have a year of kind of looking at not even a year, from April the previous year, looking at the online analytics for the B2C sales for the frozen food.
How was it on a personal level to move to Matsue and meet new people, new environment?
But I'll give you a good example, because I'm from Ireland, right? And the way you say, I know you have connections to Ireland and with Germany and France. But if you're from a small town, everybody knows everybody. Now, you're in Tokyo, you could meet someone, you'll never meet them again. But in Matsue, I could see that people know each other. So when I used to walk down the Togoshi Ginza Market Street in Tokyo, you'd say hello to everybody. It was like everyone was in this little community. I really loved that. It was like a parish, just this little community street. And that's the thing I miss most about Tokyo, is that I'm not involved in that community anymore. But in Matsue, I could see that, this is smaller. Everybody knows everybody here. So I remember saying to my wife, who's born and reared in Tokyo, be careful what you say about people down here, because they're going to be talking about us behind our back. I say, I don't really have anything to worry about, because I'm going to be at the wholesalers, I'm going to be at the stew house. And when we moved, I had this tiny car, a tiny Keiji dosha.
Do you even fit in there?
Yeah, barely. And it used to be filled to the rafters with potatoes and everything. I was like, that's going to be my reputation. So when enough people see me, they're going to go, well, he's the hardworking Irish guy. So that's going to be the reputation I'm going to have. But just to let you know, be careful, because we don't know, there might be these people don't like these people and so on. It feels very Irish here. So just be mindful of your surroundings. That's a good example of maybe a bit of a culture shock for my wife when she moved there. For me, it felt more like Ireland. People would say to me when I moved, oh, Inaka, it's very countryside, isn't it? I was like, oh, not really. You want to go to Dundalk. It's only like 40,000 people. But Matsue has the population of Cork. It's over 200,000 people. Heavy percentage on the elderly side. So it feels more like Galway or something in Ireland. Yeah, it's not that big. It doesn't feel like you could walk around it. And I miss Tokyo sometimes, but I prefer living in Matsue, I have to say.
Did that move prove to be a success from the business perspective?
If our goals initially were to reduce our risk for the import business, to reduce our costs, our liability associated with that around the time of the pandemic, then yes. So, and that's why we made a subsequent order. So we got that order in, and we made another order, only cans this time. We were thinking we're going to make this like online site for, like an aggregate site for Irish products. So we tied up with a bunch of partners like Irish chocolates or oats or beers and so on, and some of our frozen food. So in a sense, yes, it was successful in that way, but also it was a disaster in terms of the restaurant. So I should have been more cautious about the location I chose. It was way too big, and the restaurant in Tokyo was tipping away. We had some staff running it, but there was staff issues associated with that. And ultimately, I was shipping the food from Matsue. So it was frozen food. We were shipping it.
You still had the restaurant in Tokyo?
In Tokyo, yeah, for 2 years after the move. And then we did a very large restaurant in Matsue, and I was cooking all the food there as well. We struggled to get some extra stuff. We had some kitchen support, but we'd no chef in Matsue.
Yeah, because you've got a lot less resources, right?
That's right.
Fewer
You
people
pool
with
of
the
people to draw
skills
from. Yeah. For example, in Tokyo, there'd be a lot of foreigners there, chef experience or chefs, and very easy to find people who can help you with that. And then, so I was shipping all the food for Tokyo. I was making all the food in for the large stew house in Matsue, and then I was making all the food for the online store as well. So ultimately, maybe that's why leading up to those Guinness World Records, I knew that what I'm doing here is not sustainable. Like the hours I'm putting in here are crazy.
That's more than 80 hours a week.
More, yeah. I'd say from 2019 when I was really busy, but different when I moved to Matsue, and they were on those 2 years were very tough. I felt like I was in stew prison. That's the truth. Every waking moment, something needed to be done. So we got to that stage where, let's say it's 2022. I realized that this is not sustainable, and we're still hemorrhaging cash because of the Omicron. That's when we really started to hemorrhage
the
cash.
kind of second variant.
Yeah. The waves of the infections, and when Omicron came out, in particular in Matsue, there was no government support, but there was a government advisory not to go out. So because it was a large venue, we'd staff, we'd rent. It was just hemorrhaging cash. And that's when I really had to rethink what we were doing, and we looked at everything. So we had the stew house in Togoshi Ginza in Tokyo, we had the stew house in Matsue, we had an import and wholesale business, and we also had this new frozen food e-commerce business. And I was saying, I am way too overstretched here. We have to reduce our risk. So I put together a business plan, just sat down, and we said, well, let's get out of the restaurant business. Let's stop this. I'm going to shorten my life here. So we looked at the contracts on both locations. So this is around summer 2022. Omicron made me do this, like a new plan to reduce our risk. So the contract in Togoshi Ginza in Shinagawa in Tokyo was ending in February 2023. So we just said we're not going to extend it. Again, if you're going to open a restaurant in Japan, if you don't find someone to take on that location, quite often you could be liable to turn the entire place back to a skeleton, which is a huge cost as well. Oh, yeah. But thankfully, that area in Tokyo is quite popular, the Togoshi Ginza Shotengai. So there was a few applicants to try.
So you are responsible for finding someone to
That's in your contract, yeah. Especially in Tokyo. Probably Osaka, all the big cities, I'd say you're responsible. So if you take it on as a Nuki, you could be liable to turn it back into a skeleton whenever you move on.
So check your contracts as well.
And if you leave early, you could be liable for something else as well. So when the contract ended, we found someone to take on the location. We had just renovated it actually before I'd moved in 2020. So it was really clean inside. It was almost like a renewal open before I left. So it was a good location. And I think I walked by recently, and the person who took it over is basically left the interior as it is. I'm not sure. I hope he's doing well. He seems a lovely guy. So that's still going. So that was Togoshi Ginza off the list. That's one more thing not to worry about. The next one was the large location in Matsue. That contract was ending in December. And I remember sharing my thoughts with the owner of that building as well, and trying to figure out a way we could continue in this location. I really like that kitchen. It's a lovely location as well, just on the river. But there was no real budging there. There was no real middle ground. So when that contract ended in December 2023, we stopped. We also stopped the importing business as well. So we stopped. We had some stock, and once that was gone, we weren't going to import any. We weren't in a place to pay the large amount of money required for the beers to come to Japan again, especially without any stew houses. So we'd have to rely on wholesale only. So we stopped the import business. The only positive from the pandemic, well, not the only positive, actually, Togoshi, if I was in Shinagawa in Tokyo, we probably would have been okay. If it had just been me staying there, we probably would have had to stop or really scale back the importing business, just maybe a couple of pallets just for me. It would have been very small time. But I always said if I was still in Togoshi when I was 40, having started when I was 31, then I probably would give up anyway, because I was working for very little money. It's terrible. So it's not terrible, but it was difficult. So when you're looking at those 4 businesses, the import business is now gone, the 2 restaurants are gone. There was one positive in particular, and that was the frozen food business. And you look at the analytics of that and the customers who supported us. So we sent, until now, it was only small time. It was an aggregate site for Irish products and frozen food. But even on the site, the items that were having the most sales were our frozen food. So I really shouldn't have been selling other stuff on it. So that's when I said, well, okay, let's roll the dice here. We'll make one last run at this. I'm now at that time I would have been 20, what was it? That was 2022 I come up with this plan, was it? So it would have been, I'm just turning 40, and I'm going, okay, let's make an application to the national government for a restructuring grant. So that's the Jigyo Sai Kochiku Hojokin.
Another application.
And this one is extremely difficult to get. We actually hired a consultant to help with the application because we had the analytics of the frozen food business, not just of the online store, but then within the online store of the frozen food, not the other items. And basically what we were requesting was, having lost so much money, all my savings are gone now after the pandemic. And I probably, anyway. Still kind of.
Yeah, I feel the emotions.
Yeah. When I think back, wow. But we made the application, and what was it? The consultant was very, very kind. She gave us a lot of time and didn't charge us that much. She was fantastic. Thank you very much, Natsuko-san. And we made it for the large end of the application. So there was this beside where my wife's business was. So she moved to Matsue as well with her partner, a Hawaiian gentleman who does the engraving, a craftsman. And on their street, which is just by Matsue Castle, there was this small abandoned house. And sometimes, actually, sometimes you wonder, like, is there someone watching out for you? Because through a lady she knew, she was being introduced to the lady who owned this house. Right. And I think there's a little bit between those two. I don't know what the relationship is, but I was told subsequently that the lady was just being nice. She wasn't going to sell that location to my wife. But previously I'd agreed to attend some like a festival event in Matsue. I'd no staff suddenly called in sick. So I was setting up this thing in the rain on a Monday. And I think this elderly lady was there and she seen me setting up by myself. So she came over to help out. And we just laughing. I can't really understand a lot of her Japanese, but she was a sweetheart. And that was it. Never interacted with each other again. And just so happens that she's having a meeting with my wife, and my wife's just wondering about this building, would she ever sell it? And she wasn't going to. And then I just happened to walk in to the office, and she remembered me as the guy who was out there doing that and thing. And then she agreed to sell it to us. Oh, wow. So we bought this derelict house. It was like it used to be a snack bar. It was lying derelict for about 20 years in Matsue, just on the street. So we said, we have this building now. How the hell do we refurbish it? All our savings are gone because of everything that's happened in the pandemic. So that's when we said, let's roll the dice with this grant. And we were asking the government to help us restructure so we can focus purely on frozen food, become a frozen food company. That's why the stewhouse now at the moment, the matter is only open Saturdays and Sundays and holidays, because during the week we're making frozen food. And yeah, if we didn't get the grant, I think I was going to get a job. I was going to leave everything and just try to get on with my life.
So this is where the company is at today?
That was, so I waited. We made that application. I remember we made the application in the end October 2022.
How long does this usually take, the process?
We got approval maybe, still, like, it's still the application. You just have to still show them what you're doing and so on. I think for 5 years we have to keep showing that we're working on this business. But we were able to start the renovations sometime in late summer last year, and then we opened the new stew house location in September last year, 2024. So it's 1 year now we've been working in the new stew house, which is only open for eat-in on Saturdays and Sundays, and we specialise in frozen foods. For example, now it's going to be all turkeys and hams. Now we'll bone and roll them leading up to the holiday season, coming up towards the end of the year.
That's quite the business journey,
isn't it?
It shows how tough it is to open a successful restaurant in Japan, and the challenges that come with it. And what it takes to actually.
And people might look at us and think we are one of the successful ones. Like they're always busy, but the margins are so tight that it's very tricky, and you need to be on the ball with your pricing, on your human resources. Just you constantly have to be taking care of your customers so that they come back. It's a hard business. That's why anyone who works in that industry, I have so much respect for them anywhere in the world. It is not an easy job, and the ones who do it and the ones who do it well deserve so much respect and kindness. So wherever you are, go for some lunch and be kind to your waiter or whoever's running the place, you know.
You mentioned the Guinness World Records. I briefly talked about that at the very beginning. You have not one but two. How did that come to be?
Well, during that time, I was kind of making the food for the large stewhouse in Matsue, the one in Tokyo, and the online store. I knew that the hours I was putting in were crazy. And then after the pandemic, there was an opportunity to join the largest St. Patrick's Day festival in Asia, which is in Yoyogi Park. And I said, well, let's go all in here. Let's roll the dice. We'll have kind weather. Surely we've kind weather after the last few years. It had been cancelled for 3 years. So let's go do this. So we hired a kitchen car, and I rocked up on it must have been the Thursday evening maybe. So Thursday evening all the way through until Sunday night. I wanted to make every penny we could have, so I didn't sleep. So I worked those 3 days, no sleep. And I remember I was peeling potatoes at one stage and just in the car by myself at night going, this must be like a record. And I looked it up, and there was an Indian lady, Lada Tandon, who had the record for the longest cooking marathon or something. And then it was broke by the Nigerian lady who had it. And she got it. I got a lot of Nigerian fans of her who weren't happy that I broke that. But there's also an American lady who did the baking. So I was thinking, as part of my plan to reduce our risk, because I loved the location we were in Matsue, I said, what a fitting way to end this location. I knew, we never told anyone until after the Guinness World Records that I was going to close that location that December. So it was around September that year. I was like, well, let's go for this. I'm fairly certain I can break this record. But also, when I applied and I seen that there was no baking, because they're very strict, you have to have a set approved menu of items. Like, so I think I had 20 different soups and stews, the recipe, the ingredients. They're very, very detailed in what you have to provide to the Guinness World Records. But they have a separate record for baking. They have a separate record for drinks and so on. So I was like, so I can't do any soda breads to go along with this. Like, we're basically doing stews and breads. So I was like, well, tell you what, stick the bacon record on as well. And so that was just a fitting way to. And also, I think Matsue was a little bit behind Tokyo, and Tokyo was a little bit behind the rest of the world in terms of opening up. So I wanted to do something positive. I had so much negative energy in me after the pandemic. It was just, it would ate away at me. So I was like, well, let's do this and get this out of me, and it'll be something for the community. I think we gave away maybe 3 million yens worth of food to the local community. It was a real buzz. I remember there was people coming in the middle of the night just to support, to bring like kind of like energy bars and stuff. Because and the local TV company, a partner with Fuji Television, TSK, they agreed to record all the evidence and share it with the Guinness World Records.
So how does that work actually? Do you kind of ring up the Guinness World Record Committee and say, hey, I want to attempt this thing?
Yeah, you have to make an application. And if it's just a normal application, it will take a long time. So we paid a little money to well, I think it's like, was it 50,000 yen or something to get it to speed up the process. Mm-hmm. And then they'll tell you everything you need to know. And then you've got like an online account where you can engage with the Guinness people. Actually, interestingly, the lady who was our contact at the time actually recently stopped by Matsue with her family just to say hello. She was like, I had to come here and see in person. But it was just to get all that negative energy out. And TSK were very kind to do all the video. That was the one thing where I did actually made a reservation in the stew house, and when we first moved, they did like a feature on us moving from Tokyo to Matsue. And when they came in that evening, I remember they were leaving. I was saying to the guy I know, Fukumura-san, hello. I don't think he'd be listening to this in English, but I was saying, well, you wouldn't help us with this. So I had a meeting with them, and they were like, yeah, we're all on board. Let's do this. So they set up like a mini studio in the stew house to record everything. Every moment needs to be recorded, and to correspond with that, you need to have 2 volunteers working in 4-hour shifts, monitoring everything you do, as well as having photograph evidence of everything. So there was a lady, who's still kind of working with us. She lives in Odawara now. Yuki Haraguchi-san, she coordinated everything. It was amazing to everything. I don't think we could have done it without her. She put in such a massive effort to coordinate all the photographs and the video evidence, and to record the volumes of food and how many portions were served at what time. And then when that item was finished, this item was being made. You need to have 2 items cooking constantly. And we gave all the food away. And I remember there was some elderly Japanese ladies who must live in a farm or something. They came in with bento boxes for all the staff who were there. Because I had to get approval from Guinness to sell drinks, because all the food needed to be free. And if any food was wasted, then you're disqualified. So all the food had to go away for free. And I got their approval just to sell some drinks.
So what exactly are the 2 records you're holding?
I don't hold I don't hold the cooking one anymore. Someone broke I held it for about 2 years. I still own the baking one. But combined, doing both of them back to back, I dare someone to break that one. That's the one to go for it. And I have massive hats off to you if you do.
So it was
it's awesome.
Longest consecutive cooking?
That's right. It was 120 hours, and then we stopped. And we reset the kitchen, and then we did the baking one, which was 2 days, 48 hours. No, baking first, then the cooking. So it was in total 169 hours or something like that there.
So you mentioned the local people were coming to cheer you up in the middle of the night, giving you some energy bars.
There's queues, yeah. I felt under pressure to get the food out quicker.
Throughout the night, people had to come and eat, because if it's wasted, it doesn't
That's
count.
right, yeah.
So you need to get the whole town, city involved. Because if nobody comes to actually...
A real buzz. And as I mentioned earlier, I used to walk along Togoshi Ginza and say hello to people. But now when I go in Matsue, in my daily life of going here to the wholesaler and going here, I kind of know everybody, and it's a wonderful community. And it's rare to have that in Japan sometimes. So that's why I think I really enjoy living in Matsue. They really, at that moment, they really accepted me and embraced me as kind of like...
he's one
part
of
the city, yeah. He's one of us now, and it was very good. When old ladies start coming in with the bento boxes for everybody, it was just a real buzz. Even kids were coming in, like you'd imagine parents explaining what Guinness World Records are to the kids, and kids would come in with like hand drawing pictures and so on. So that was lovely. And I got all that negative energy out. And then straight afterwards, we announced that we were closing that stew house, and we had hoped to open this new place, but until the grant approval came, we weren't sure. And I was starting to create a resume. Like,
how do you feel the moment you finish cooking for like 3-4 days in a row, and you just like you serve the last stew?
I don't think you don't. It was great. Yeah, it was great to there was a lot of people there, well wishers and so on. When I think back to how I felt at that time. Yeah, I just remember just seeing my wife, and there was an Irish gentleman who came down, Mike Ryan, who was he was a legend as well. He recorded all the food and together with Yuki, and because when the Guinness World Records, they sent us a request saying, "Can you give us a spreadsheet of all the dishes that were made?" Mm-hmm. And me and Yuki were going, "Oh my God, what are we doing? Do we have that? We have it, but we have to make the spreadsheet." But Mike already had it ready. Just needed to adjust to whatever their specifics were, and then we were able to send it on to them. So I remember I had a pint with Mike. I fell asleep quickly thereafter. But it was just a nice thing to do. It felt like maybe we were turning a corner, and that we'll either get the grant or we won't. But I was kind of happy in what I'd done. It was a great way to kind of, if there was not going to be any more stew house, which was like kind of like a toss of a coin. Then it was a great way to go out.
What a way to end that chapter.
Yeah.
But that led to a new one now. The stew house is still alive.
That's right.
In reduced capacity.
We got approval, and it's like it's like the comeback story of the year. I think when I was home there just last week in Ireland, the previous time I'd been home was February 2024. We just closed the stew house. I had no idea if the grant was going to come through. I was saying to my friends, like, I don't know, we hammered so much money there during the pandemic. I'm not sure what the year holds, but in the past year, my wife and I, we were very fortunate. Maybe when the stew house, a bit time away from the stew house, we had our first daughter, Una. So she's the highlight of my world now. And obviously you look at life a bit differently. And someone's watching out for us because we got approval. I think only 20% of the applications for the restructuring grant got approved. And we were on the top end, thankfully. So I'm very humbled, but I have a renewed sense of motivation to kind of give this everything I got, especially now with a young family,
So what's next? You've had this wild ride.
I know,
You closed off this difficult chapter with 2 Guinness World Records. Now you have a family and you kind of starting afresh in Matsue. What can people expect in the coming years from the Kyojin no stewhouse?
Well, wherever I am, I'm happy to do like the restaurant on the weekends or holidays. That's when it's not, the kitchen isn't being used for anything, I'm still there. So please feel free to get in touch, especially if you're in Matsue. I think there won't be any more restaurants in any of the bigger cities. I think that's too much work to stress, and the return just isn't there. But we're very much focused on the frozen food side of things. So the last year since we opened, until that point, we'd sold some B2C. So now what we were looking at last year is trying to get into supermarkets and get some B2B customers. A very important learning curve in that is understanding the frozen food value chain. Like if a supermarket makes an order, what's the lead time they need to get their food? How much time do we need how much stock should we keep? How much do we have the freezer space? So there's a lot of things to kind of iron out and figure out what's the best way to work with us within our environment. And then we've done that for the last year. I'm kind of really happy with where we're at, and I'd like to make a big push now to maybe to join like FoodX maybe next year. I'm hoping to join. They have the largest frozen food kind of category or display in the world for a fair. So I'm currently looking at how I can join the FoodX next year. If anyone is in Japan and they want to try some of our frozen food, feel free to just search us, you'll find us. Christmas is a big one, the turkeys and hams. For example, we cure like, for example, I think one of the things we chatted about previously was how do you make the food authentic and stuff. Well, you have to make it yourself unless you're using. So for our Dublin Coddle, for example, I'm using my own home cured ham for the most part. Sometimes we might have to buy it, but I'm curing it a lot. So I'm buying local Sanine pork and I'm curing it myself in the stew house. The sausages are my own sausages that I'm making. We're using an oat sausage. So that's me. I'm looking at buying until now I was using a hand crank, but I'd like to invest in a proper electric one now as well.
A lot of cranking.
Yeah. But that's so that's why it's authentic. It's because it tastes like I want it to taste like as if an Irish person comes in, then I'm confident we can deliver something that they would expect from Ireland, or maybe undersell, over deliver. That's always what I try to do. So I would hope they'd leave going, wow, they'd be like an ambassador for us then whenever they recommend Irish food to people in Japan, you know.
So for people in Japan interested in getting you food, we'll make sure to put the links in the descriptions. They can order
online. Well, that's very kind of you.
Maybe we'll be able to find some of this in some of the big supermarket chains across Japan soon.
Well, that's a very good point. Like, so, like we couldn't just go into Eon. They're everywhere. That's too much. We don't have the capacity to do that. So we have to find a good middle ground now. That's where we're at. We are now in about 3 supermarkets. And if you're ever in Molly Malone's in Hiroshima's, a lot of our food's on their menu. They have a very comprehensive menu. They make their own burgers and stuff like that, fish and chips, and then they complement that with some of our frozen food, like our sausages and our stews and breads and cakes. So yeah, I'm happy with how we're progressing, but no more. I don't want to overextend myself ever again. Like now that Una's here, I got to be more careful. No more unnecessary risk. I think that's where I'm at. So fingers crossed it'll work out in the next few years. But if anyone's in Matsue, please feel free to stop in and say hello. Yeah, come on down. Yeah.
Alan, thank you so much for being so open about your journey, your challenges, kind of everything you've been through.
No, it's very kind. Thanks for having me.
Do you feel like we covered everything? Is there something that was important to you?
No. Just thanks for taking an interest. That's greatly appreciated. And actually, if anyone's interested, they can get and see if they want to open a restaurant in Japan, or even if they're interested in the import business. I'm happy to share my experience. Feel free to get in touch, and I can share our story in more detail with them directly.
Alan, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Tobias. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back in the next episode. Bye.